Hello my dear friends, you're in the middle of a summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where the Russian ceasefire ended at 12 a.m. of the 12th of May of 2026. And both the Russians and the Ukrainians began attacking the territories of each other with a significant number of drones. And the Minister of Defense of Ukraine this morning stated that during the previous nights, the Russians used 216 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation also provided the number on this matter, and the Russians are saying that during the previous night, they destroyed 27 drones of the armed forces of Ukraine. So as you can see, according to these numbers, the Russians, after ceasefire ended, used 10 times more drones in comparison with the Ukrainian side. And of course, during the previous night and this morning, we start receiving first videos and updates after the May's holiday ceasefire on the matter of explosions and destructions that the Russians managed to deal as a result of this attack. First, let's discuss these pictures. Here we have first pictures that were published during the night around between 3 and 4 a.m. of the 12th of May of 2026. And here we can see the approximate positions of the Russian drones over the territory of Ukraine. As you can see, according to this picture, the Russians launched at least 4 waves of attack. The southern wave started from the area of Crimea. The eastern wave of attack started somewhere around from the territory of Lugansk region. And there were 2 waves from the northern directions. One of them entered the territory of Ukraine from the Bryansk region, and the second one from the Kursk region. So 4 waves of attacks, and the Russian drones were moving in the central part of Ukraine, and lots of explosions and damages were recorded along these roads of attacks. Lots of drones, as you can see, were recorded around and above the city of Kiev, but as of the morning of the 12th of May of 2026, we received videos of drones flying over the capital of Ukraine, but we almost haven't received anything on the matter of explosions and destructions. So let's discuss the videos that were published by different sources. For example, and probably the most important video is coming from the Dnipro direction, from the territory of the city of Pokrov. And in this video, we can see how the Russians were attacking an object of energy infrastructure. Probably it is a substation, and as a result of attack, this substation was completely destroyed. Another important thing worth attention is that this substation, as you can see, we can see the substation on the video, but we can't find this substation on the map, which means that this substation has been built recently. This is a new construction, and as you can see, the Russians destroyed this construction almost completely. Furthermore, explosions were recorded to the southwest of the city of Dnipro in the area of the settlement by the name of Svetogorskaya. Here we have pictures. In these pictures, we can see a fire, and we can see probably damaged or even destroyed gas station. Later, we received the report that the Russians, as a result of the overnight attack, damaged or completely destroyed a gas station in the area of the village of Svetogorskaya. And this is probably 20s or 30s gas station destroyed by the Russians since the beginning of this year. And lots of explosions were recorded to the northeast of the settlement of Dnipro, in the area of the settlement by the name of Samar. And here we have pictures. Here we have locomotives that were destroyed as a result of the Russian attack using drones. So as we can see, the special military operation resumed. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue clashes and attacking each other. Furthermore, today several pro-Ukrainian sources reported that during the upcoming night and during the upcoming 24 hours, the Ukrainians most likely will carry out massive attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation using hundreds of drones. So as you can see, everything starts from the beginning. But as for the ceasefire between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, that ended at 12 a.m. for the 12th of May of 2026, it seems that this ceasefire wasn't the only ceasefire. And this ceasefire is the ceasefire between Ukraine and the Russian Federation, but it seems there was another ceasefire, but not a military ceasefire, but a political ceasefire. And this political ceasefire was between the United States of America and Ukraine, because today, during the 12th of May of 2026, we received lots of updates, lots of political updates. First of all, a very interesting interview was published between Tucker Carlson and Zelensky's former press secretary, and she revealed lots of very interesting details about Zelensky and about the situation in Ukraine. She said that I spoke with the people who represented Ukraine at the Istanbul talks in 2022, and they explained me in detail that they agreed to everything. Moreover, and very importantly, they said that Zelensky personally agreed to give up Donbas. Yulia Mendel said in an interview with Tucker Carlson. She did not disclose who provided this information. According to her, Zelensky agreed to give up territory because it would mean an end to the war. And now he stands before an audience of millions and says, I cannot give up Donbas. You see, he's inconsistent and he keeps changing his position. Furthermore, she was talking a lot about corruption, and the most important, she was talking a lot about drug addiction and lots of things about Zelensky. So this is a very powerful political strike against the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and most likely from the US side. And the second attack that also most likely was carried out by the United States of America is attack against a former head of Zelensky's office, Andriy Yermak. This night we start receiving updates that Kiev's city center is cordoned off with uniformed men blocking decision-making centers. Dozens of buses and uniformed men with guns are on site. Apparently, this is part of the NABU and SAP investigations against Zelensky's inner circle. And later we start receiving additional details on this matter. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine is conducting legal proceedings that may be related to Andriy Yermak, former head of Zelensky's office, Ukrainian media reports. The footage allegedly shows Ukrainian intelligence officers blocking Yermak's Mercedes and speaking with the alleged suspect. So this is Andriy Yermak, Zelensky had the former head of Zelensky's office. And of course, during the day we continue receiving updates on this matter. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine published the Yermak tapes, which depicts discussions of luxury housing construction near Kiev. According to investigators, 460 million hryvnias, it's probably $100 million, were laundered during this construction. In the tapes, Zelensky's former head of office is identified by the code name R2, so which means that there is R1, and the sources are saying that probably R1 is the president of Ukraine, Zelensky himself. And we continue receiving updates on this matter. Ukraine National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office have formally served former presidential office head Andriy Yermak, who resigned in November 2025, with a notice of suspicion in a major money laundering case. So this is another attack against the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and these two attacks, the interview and attack against his former head of the office, have similar purposes: to force Zelensky to begin negotiations with the Russian Federation, and probably to force Zelensky to travel to Moscow with the purpose to have a meeting with the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. So as you can see, these two attacks are very powerful. Let's wait and see how the things are going to develop. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, we have changes. We have changes in the Sumy direction. According to different sources, the armed forces of the Russian Federation improved their positions along the border by sending further in the western direction additional sabotage and reconnaissance groups. The Russians continue offensive towards the settlements of Bachevsk and Korenok. As of the beginning of the 12th of May of 2026, the Russians are still very far from these villages, but now we see the direction. Now let's talk about the northeastern parts of Kharkiv region. Here we have changes as well. The Russians continue offensive operation in the direction of the settlement Belый Kolodец and in the direction of the most northeastern part of the region. So we have changes around the settlement of Semenovka. Pro-Ukrainian and pro-neutral mappers expanded the infiltration zone in this region, moving the territories under strong control of the armed forces of Ukraine in the direction of the village of Belый Kolodец. Once again, these are the changes on the ground. Furthermore, according to sources, the Russians have improved their positions significantly once again along the border, and the Russians continue advancing further along the river of Volchansk along its northern bank in the direction of the villages of Sabelny, Nesterna, and Budarki. So the Russians resumed their offensive operations along the entire line of combat contact, but as we can see, yet without significant changes. But most likely these significant changes will be, but not now, but probably a bit later. The Slaviansk direction, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes were also recorded. The Russians have improved their positions to the west of the settlement of Kalenivki on the territory of this big forest. And currently we can say that up to 5% of this big forest is already under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Maybe even not 5%, but even more, up to 10% are already under complete Russian control. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions between the settlements of Alexandrovka and Lipki. These are the changes on the ground. As we can see, we have colored the contested area as the territory and the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, based on the video that was published by pro-Russian sources. And in this video, we can see how Russian troops were moving through these tree lines and how Russians were fighting with the Ukrainian positions along these tree lines. And as a result of these attacks, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, and the Russians continue advancing. And we have changes along the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal in the area of the settlement of Minkovka. Here we have a video published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were after withdrawing Russians in this area. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map as well. So the Eastern Slaviansk direction is one of the most dynamic directions along the entire line of combat contact. As for the city of Konstantinovka, we haven't received anything. The only interesting thing is that the Russians conducting a reconnaissance operation over the settlement of Mykolaipolia. In Mykolaipolia, we can see that the village was damaged significantly, and it seems that the Russians are preparing themselves before the beginning of another offensive operation, but this time in the area of this village. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything special. We expected that the Russians would begin their major offensive operation, or the Ukrainians would do this, but as of the beginning of the 12th of May of 2026, we haven't received anything on this matter. We have covered most of the updates regarding the territory, regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East, and more precisely, let's discuss the situation in talks between China and the United States of America. And we see that the situation is very interesting. Today, according to media, the conflict with Iran has provided China with the free opportunity to study and the vulnerabilities of the American strategy and prepare for a possible confrontation with the US. China is analyzing all details of American operations, including the pace of missile strike, logistics, intelligence work, and ammunition expenditure. Particular attention is being paid to how quickly the United States depletes its expensive Tomahawk and Patriot missiles. The US is struggling to break through Iran's blockade, expending significant firepower. The President of the United States of America tomorrow will arrive in China and will have a meeting with the President of China, Xi Jinping. And the sources are saying that the President of the United States of America is moving to China with a deal. Yesterday, he stated that I'm very much looking forward to my trip to China, an amazing country with a leader, President Xi, respected by all. Great things will happen for both countries. And the sources are saying that the US President Donald Trump announced that at a meeting with Xi Jinping in Beijing, he will discuss the possible cessation of US arms supplies to Taiwan. But obviously, and one thing is clear, that the President of the United States of America can ask or will ask something in exchange. And if states promises China not to provide weapons to Taiwan, most likely the President of the United States of America will demand or will ask China not to provide weapons to Iran. So from this perspective, one can say that this is a very interesting and fair deal, but from another side, we need to understand that the United States of America is about to renew or restart their offensive or its military operation against Iran, but China is not going to do something similar with Taiwan in coming days or even probably months, which means that when and if the United States of America finishes the situation in the Middle East in their favor, and of course the United States of America will be able to resume selling weapons to Taiwan. Or if another president comes, everything might change once again. So that is why we believe that China will reject this proposal from the President of the United States of America. President Trump is considering a new large-scale military operation in the Middle East. At the same time, we see that oil prices began rising after the statement of the President of the United States of America that he is ready to resume a military operation. Oil is again above $100 per barrel. Trump has virtually no options left for maneuvering. The war will resume very soon. Most likely, this may happen right after talks with China ends, or probably even before talks begins, with the purpose to have stronger and better cards during the negotiation process on the territory of China itself. Meanwhile, the Israeli forces continue their buffer zone operation in the southern parts of Lebanon, but during the previous 12 hours, we received lots of videos of how Hezbollah were attacking the Israeli Defense Forces with a significant number of FPV drones. So everything may start very, very soon, but at the same time, we see that the Strait of Hormuz is still blocked and that nobody can cross the Strait of Hormuz without permission from the Iranian side. And for example, over the past 60 days, only 9 container ships have passed through the Strait of Hormuz. It has been 2 months since the strait was blocked for commercial container ships. According to Kepler data, there are 53 ships belonging to the world's top 10 shipping companies in the Persian Gulf, with 79%, around 42 ships, still unable to leave the strait. Furthermore, during the previous 24 hours, several Qatari LNG vessels were trying to cross the Strait of Hormuz, but it seems that one of them was allowed to do this, but the second one was forced to return back in the area of the Persian Gulf. And that's it for the short video. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.